Welcome to the show No Instructions, where we meet with founders and interview them about starting and growing their businesses. I'm your host, Chad Ingram, 3-time founder and CEO at Distro. Distro is a platform to help businesses build teams by breaking down borders around the world. Let's go ahead and get started with today's guest and see how they built their business. Welcome to the show today at No Instructions. I've got Lee Chang from Ruck with us today. Thanks for coming on the show.
Yeah, it's great to be here.
Cool. We want to hear your story, and we want to hear, of course, about what Ruck is and how you got here and what it is that you're doing. But before we do that, like you as an entrepreneur, like where does your story start? You know, is there any sort of influence when you were younger, or is this something that kind of like hit you as an adult?
Straight up. So like my parents, my dad is definitely more of a traditional like clock in, clock out kind of guy. Okay. He's always had a steady job as a computer engineer. But my mom's always been like the business minded person doing real estate investment. And, she always found smart ways to play the real estate game, 1031 exchanges, taking advantage of primary residence, taxes exemptions, stuff like that.
Was she like an agent or like
she was an
independent
agent,
investor?
She was an agent, but she really played the investment game strongly. And then so, my dad did a lot of the maintenance, and then he had this steady income. And then my mom was just out there. She was also working as an agent, but then started investing. And then pretty quickly, they're immigrants. So
From where?
From Taiwan.
Okay.
Yeah. They immigrated independently and met in America.
Right.
And, for immigrants to get where they are now in terms of like, because I manage all of their real estate now, it's pretty significant. I won't say how much, but it's like pretty impressive and really, really a significant amount to where it's like you have to have a lot of skill to get to that point.
Yeah.
And
time, right?
Time, yeah, for sure time. Because real estate's kind of a slow burn.
Yeah.
People try to play it off like it's a speedy game, but it's not.
It's not at all.
It's much better played as like a long-term game.
Yeah.
So that spirit got passed down. And then as a kid, I just did what many kids do in school. They find ways to make crafts and sell it, buy foods and sell it. So my gimmick was I went and bought these probiotic drinks called Yakult. They're kind of popular now, but back in the day, nobody knew about them. And
where was this? Where'd you grow up?
Sedona, Arizona.
Oh, in Arizona.
Well, so I was born in California.
Okay.
And I was there for a bit.
What part?
Orange County.
Okay.
So, and then I went to Arizona, and we've always had kind of dual, like moving back and forth between Arizona and California. So most of my time was spent in Arizona though. But like I was the only Asian kid for like 50-mile radius, basically.
Yeah.
The only other kid was like half Asian.
Yeah. There's quite a few Native Americans also in the Sedona area, right?
Yeah, we were right by the res, and we had like I had classmates whose last names were like Yellow Horse or like stuff like that. And I've been on, I've met people on the reservation that like don't speak English and stuff. Like they only spoke, I think it was Navajo. I'm not entirely sure.
What's fascinating is how little we know about Indian reservation and the life on the res for those that live there. It's pretty interesting. Last year, I had to go pick up a car part for one of my race cars, and it was kind of a weird logistical mess, and so I couldn't have it shipped, so I had to go get it, and I had to drive through Navajo Nation for 4 hours, and it was pretty intense. Like it was just so different. You're like, wow. I mean, I'm in the U.S., but I'm also not in the U.S. a little bit.
Yeah, talking to some of my classmates in high school.
Yeah.
Like I don't know if it's great grandparents or grandparents, they would be still mostly off the grid, right? Like they're not hunters and gatherers, but they're like no TV, no internet, no cell phones, no modern technology besides basically like electricity.
Yeah.
And like maybe some running water, but they're like herding cattle and whatever, they got, and just kind of living off the grid.
So, back to your parents, how much of, your mom's entrepreneurship or, entrepreneurability like was enabled by maybe your dad having a steady job? Did it help?
Definitely helped. So we wouldn't have gotten where we are today without my mom's kind of like aggressiveness and vision for business and passion for business. But it would have been a lot slower of a curve going up if it wasn't for a steady income on my dad's side, because he earned decently as a like Cobalt engineer, like kind of doing like IBM mainframe stuff.
Oh, so he's a tech guy.
Yeah, yeah, but like old school.
Yeah, old school. We're talking like microchip processors and
stuff like that. Yeah. He doesn't understand what I'm doing these days, and I don't understand what he's doing.
Yeah. Totally.
He looks at my code and he doesn't get it.
Yeah. So it's pretty interesting. In fact, we were just talking about Andy Grove, who's like an old microchip processor, Silicon Valley guy. He's like 70 years old now and an investor in Silicon Valley. And I was referencing that in another episode, and it was kind of funny to talk about that. There's this whole other like pre-millennial tech group that like was doing crazy innovative stuff before that we just like comb over now,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely.
Because everything's so much faster.
Everything's digital now. Like Silicon Valley got its name because it was actual, like chips getting made and like everything getting put in like circuit boards, motherboards, silicon, everything going together.
Yeah.
But like now it's all software.
Yeah. And then cloud software, right? Like before it was, it's been, I don't know, 12 plus years or about when everything, went to the cloud. So, all right, Sedona. Sedona's kind of a small town, isn't it?
Tiny, dude.
So did your parents invest in that community, or were they buying stuff kind of all over?
They invested in that community, in Sedona area really early on. So when we moved to Sedona, it wasn't uncommon to see people riding horseback, like down Main Street, like tying up horses next to an Oldsmobile or something.
Yeah.
And then there's been multiple occasions where we wake up and there's like a hippie just sleeping in our bushes, like just straight up, sometimes nude. Like they just dance to the vortexes at night.
Yeah.
Like real honest to goodness hippies that lived off the grid, didn't use Instagram to post about their hippie stories. Like
they're real hippies.
Yeah. Their new ageism was just for them, you know? And they loved everyone. Like, doesn't matter if you're a Christian or whatever, they loved everyone.
It's actually kind of cool.
Yeah.
So, okay. Are your parents still in Sedona?
They kind of move around, but their base is still in Sedona.
Okay, cool. So you went to BYU.
Yep.
You go to school. What do you study
in
your undergrad?
So I did business strategy. And that was because I didn't get into the accounting or the finance program.
Okay, let's talk about that.
Yeah.
Is it still Norm's program, Accounting 200? The really difficult class, like the intro to accounting class.
What's Norm's last name?
Was it Wilk? No, it's what's his last name? I can't remember. But he ran the program forever. And then when I was there, I took Accounting 200.
But that was Stice though. Stice taught 200.
It would have been, but it was Norm's program that they were like offering, and it was all like videos. You just played it, which was crazy. It wasn't like in classroom. It was really weird, at least. And this would have been when I was there, 2009.
Yeah.
So kind of crazy. What year did you go to BYU?
So I started in 2009 because I finished high school a year early.
Yeah.
2009. Yeah, 2009.
That's interesting. Okay. So you're there, you don't get into the accounting program.
Yeah.
Which doesn't mean you're dumb. The accounting program at BYU is insane.
Well,
it's like
so I had straight A's after my mission.
Okay.
Prior to my mission,
hold on, we gotta stop there. What's a mission and where'd you go?
Oh, okay. Mission for the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints.
Okay, so, where'd you go?
When I went to Hong Kong, Macau.
Oh, very cool.
Yeah.
Very cool.
So I was living there and I learned Cantonese.
Very cool.
So they had me serve as Cantonese and Mandarin and English missionaries at different time. So
yeah, very cool. So you came back.
Yeah, I came back. I got really good grades, but I didn't get in is because I had 2 years before my mission. And one of the semesters I had like a 0.69 GPA.
Oh, no.
And that just crushed every other, because, it was like I did okay in my other semesters, but my middle 2 semesters out of the 4, I was just partying. And so, yeah, it was bad. And I retook a bunch of classes, but it wasn't good enough to get me back in.
Shoot.
Yeah, which is a good thing.
Yeah. No, it turns out like this will all play to it. But now when you're in school, like, did it feel like school came naturally to you, or did you feel like you had to kind of work at it to get good grades? Except for the parting semesters, of course.
Learning came naturally to me. And the learning through systemized tests and exams was not good for me. Okay. So homework wasn't a big deal. Yeah. Like, especially anything counting math 119, anything, or 118 or whatever related, crushed it.
Right.
Doing projects, no problem. I think my anxiety before tests and during tests would cripple me.
Yeah.
So I would have to really try hard to relearn everything, cram before the test, even if I already had a good grade in the class and all my assignments were good.
What were you so anxious about in the test?
That it's like there's no coming back from doing poorly on a test.
That's true.
So it's not how real life works. So I don't think I'm naturally geared to be good at exams.
Yeah. Do you think the anxiety was like more about the failure of the exam itself or the class, or was it more about like
getting my ass kicked by my parents?
Well, yeah, getting in trouble by your parents, like any good parents.
Yeah, they didn't really check my grades, and like it's not like they were checking my grades in college. Yeah. But it comes up. Parents will be like, "How you doing?" And
were they helping you in school, like financially?
So I did my own tuition,
okay,
but they provided a place so my brothers and I, we all had a place to stay.
Oh, cool.
So that's helped a lot.
Yeah, that's cool. Yeah. Okay, but like the question really is also like, did you have anxiety about what bad grades might mean for your career? Was it that, or was it more like immediate?
No, like I think it was just I was crafted into seeking after doing the best I could do, and just tests were not a good indicator of what my best efforts were.
Do you think you knew that at the time?
Yeah, I think inherently, like subconsciously, I recognized that, and that's what drove the anxiety.
Okay.
Yeah. Standardized exams, I think, are a horrible way to measure someone's capability to learn.
It's a terrible way.
I think projects and experiential learning are great ways, but
yeah,
standardized tests are not a good way.
It's a terrible way. I mean, the school system needs to be disrupted really hardcore. There's actually a school. We put my son, who's still young, in a Montessori school, and he started learning in a better way, I think, because he was a little bit more like hands-on and more like touching, feeling, doing things. And then there's another program here in Utah called Slope. In fact, a lot of entrepreneurs' kids go to this school, and it's a school run that's extremely disruptive, where you have like all grades helping one another. So like the teenagers actually teaching the little kids.
Yeah.
And it's really, really kind of interesting. You have to look it up at some point, but you definitely, school needs to be disrupted.
And I say that with and that's not the focus of the podcast, obviously,
sure,
but the last thing I'll say is I think that a centralized school system has been polished to the point it can be to serve so many students, right? Standardized testing and curriculum might be the only way to run a school system so systematically across such a widespread population, which is not the way I think education should be done. Like learning, I'm not just saying education, but learning shouldn't work like that.
What's the difference?
I mean, you don't learn from school. You learn from experiences, and school's supposed to provide you with experiences to learn from.
Right.
But again, education is like some sort of canonized documentation of your knowledge.
Yep.
But like learning is not the same thing.
The other problem,
because I don't remember anything from law school, dude.
Yeah, which we'll talk about
but
next.
I have the degree.
Yeah, exactly. So, but think about it like this way: the rate at which we are consuming and creating content and knowledge, like over this period of time, like it is going so fast. Like we're creating content, learning things at lightning speed compared to 30, 40, 50 years ago. And so back then, data, knowledge, whatever was all pretty much standardized and the same. And by the time it was like reviewed and then published in a book and then syndicated, it was not old. Today, anything that you add now into a book, like let's say history books being written right now over the next few years are going to include the pandemic, right? But our knowledge of the pandemic by the time that book gets published and syndicated in a few years might totally change. It's just too slow for the way that our community now consumes information, I think.
And it's a reflection of the change in times. So I can't speak to the correctness of one way or the other, or one time or another. But in an analog world, your learnings should be deeper and more specialized and slower, because anything you do has real world impact. Like you mess up on a piece of machinery, it's done for.
Yeah.
And it's super expensive to repair it because everything has to be hand welded or whatever crafted.
Mm-hmm.
Nowadays, you mess up on a piece of code, just go in there, within 5 minutes, it's fixed.
Delete it, fix it.
Right.
Yep.
Wikipedia is updated how many times a day? I don't know.
Yeah. Yep.
And so, I could push, 17 different updates in one day on software.
Yeah.
So I think people are consuming bits of information consistently and constantly, but they're not going as deep.
Yeah.
And that's better suited to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
Whereas our grandparents' generation, they were consuming things slower, but much more deeply, which is better for their generation.
It kind of like career paths also have the same pattern, right? Yeah. Like in older generations, it's like park somewhere for 25 years. And then, with a millennial, right? Like, if you're at a company for 6 years, you're like a veteran now, Yeah.
Okay. Like, man, I can't tell you how many people applied for our operations role with just 6 months here, 1 year there, 6 months here. And I'm like, I need a guy for 4 years minimum.
At least, right? Right? Yeah, totally. That's the trade-off. It's too much bouncing around. Okay, so you're at BYU. You're studying. You're in the business school, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Marriott School of Business. And did you have any clarity as to what school might mean for your career, at least at that time?
After getting to the strategy program purely by serendipity.
Right.
The strategy program was probably the best thing that happened to me academically.
Okay.
Because it put me in contact with people that were entrepreneurial professionally. Mm-hmm. And it gave me a mindset of it is okay to pursue a non-traditional profession. It is okay to try out a business. And it is okay, especially okay, very okay to do that while in school.
Did you, okay, so there's also an entrepreneurship emphasis at that school, right?
Yeah.
But there's also, a lot of business, options and career path. Did you feel like you were going to start a business at some point, or was it not super clear?
It was only clear after I got into the strategy program.
Okay.
Because there was a lot of chatter about startups in the strategy program.
Okay.
Because a lot of people might go to the startups, or they were review, we're looking at startup business models as in retrospect. One of the most influential case studies we did that impacted me was looking at Southwest and how they went to market and how they grew. And we don't think of Southwest as a startup these days as a disruptor.
Yeah.
But back in its day, it was pretty crazy disruptive.
Yeah.
So studying that suddenly made me realize it's these legacy companies all were startups at one point.
Totally.
And then looking at where people were going for jobs and whatnot. Because the accounting program, you basically have your path set. Finance as well.
Big four, yeah.
Yeah. But for the strategy students, despite the fact that BYU has a very reputable strategy program, high ranking and very selective, they don't get recruited as hard into Bain or McKinsey. So they often go to, it's a very diverse post-school employment portfolio for these students.
Yeah. So, okay. So you graduate. Then you go to law school.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me about that.
To be quite honest, I did law school out of respect for my parents.
Okay.
You know, none of my brothers went to grad school. They fought with my parents quite a bit about education in general. And I felt that because of the opportunities I've been provided in the US as an Asian American, that was provided by my parents making a massive life decision and many decisions afterwards from immigrating to America when they didn't have any family backing here, didn't have any money.
It was nothing.
Nothing. Like they scrapped and saved like maybe $2,000 and then like brought their suitcases over and were like job hunting the next day. Like,
how old were they when they did that?
I'm almost 23 and single. Like
Wow.
she came over as a single 23-year-old girl.
What about your dad? Your dad immigrated as well?
Yeah, my dad, I think he was like 25.
Wow, and they found each other here.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, they found each other in California. Yeah. But like I felt like I owed it to my parents to try to achieve one of their dreams, and they always wanted their kids to have good education, to go to grad school, you know, become a doctor, engineer,
Yeah,
or
of course.
lawyer.
Right, yeah.
And I'm still not an attorney, but I plan on taking the bar one day. But doing law school was kind of like a conscious choice to show my gratitude for my parents.
Okay.
And obviously had a lot of benefits for me.
Yeah.
But I didn't want to go to law school.
Of course.
I recognized the benefits. I made the best out of a decision that I didn't necessarily do for myself. But I owe it to my parents to do that. I mean, 3 years out of my life for 30 years out of theirs.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. I mean, so they expressed to you at some point, like, education's really important. We want you to do this.
Oh yeah. You know, as soon as you can talk.
That's so funny.
Yeah, it's that,
so different
it's
than
that,
mine.
And it's education and practicing piano.
Yeah. So can you still play?
I can, you know, I can
Maybe a
open
little
up.
bit.
Well, I can read a piece of music and play it.
Yeah, that's
but
cool.
all of my competition memorization pieces are gone.
So you played for a while.
Yeah. I competed on state level and stuff. So
that's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Do you know Christy Muir from? She's on the investment team at Paleon. She's like a classical pianist.
Probably I've met her at some
Yeah,
point because
probably
I've stopped by the Paleon offices.
Well, if we're at an event where you're both there, I'll introduce you to each other. But
yeah.
Anyway, okay, so you go to law school, and like, was there any thought to what happens next, or
I did not want to become an attorney.
So yeah, but when was that clear to you? So because I had a similar experience. I don't know if we've talked about this, but I was planning to go to law school. In fact, the night I made my decision to be an entrepreneur, I was in my LSAT prep course. I can't remember the big company name that did them, that ran the prep courses, you know, but it would be like 2 nights a week kind of thing. Yeah. And I was it was a Friday night, which is like the LSAT. You take the LSAT that night. So there's one like prep night, and then there's like a take the LSAT night, and everyone's heads went down to start taking the LSAT. And the practice one, an old LSAT. And I just sat there for 30 minutes staring at a wall. I'm like, I'm not meant to do this.
Yeah.
And then I left.
Honestly, you're right. Like LSAT prep, I didn't have the clear thought of I didn't want to be an attorney, but I don't think I ever really was planning on being an attorney.
Really?
I think my parents and I had that conversation pretty early on of like, hey, I'll be an esquire, but I'm not going to practice probably because I can make a lot more money doing. So being an attorney or a doctor, it's not, you can't make it about the money.
Yeah.
Not for most attorneys. You have a very select few, like less than 1% that actually do very, very well off of those industries.
Yeah, all have good incomes, but they're not.
Yeah, you want job security, do sales.
Yeah, totally.
You know,
yeah.
You want job security, go be a hairstylist. Everybody's got to cut hair.
And it doesn't come with a $200,000 debt bill.
Yeah. You got to really be passionate about it and practicing, not just the subject of. And I wasn't passionate. So most of my LSAT prep courses, I was, you know, on my phone, and then I would only tune in for like the game section.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
All right. Well, let's move forward a little bit. After law school, you got to start making money, right?
Yeah. Well, during law school, I was already working full time.
Really? So you're going to law school full time and working full time, pretty much.
Yeah. Yeah.
Who are you working for?
Blip for Ruck, or for
Yeah. Now you work for Ruck.
Yeah. For Brent. over at Blip.
Brent Thompson, who's also been on this podcast, a friend of mine.
Yeah.
So if you haven't listened to that episode, listen to that episode.
That's the first episode I listened to for this. Yeah.
Because
he's got a crazy story.
He has such a cool story. He's from this tiny little town that I go to every year to go like off-road and riding outside of Lake Powell.
He showed me a picture of the house he grew up in, and I'm like, wow, that's
right. And really... it's bigger now than it was then, like the little town. Okay. And not much, but it's bigger. It is tiny. Like I don't think there's a stoplight.
Meeting Brent's probably one of the most fortuitous things that's happened for me professionally, because you couldn't pick someone to guide your mindset in a realistic, optimistic, and like, in such a way that puts you in a really healthy spot to build startups and build companies.
Yeah. So at what point do you approach Blip? Did you see a job ad or did somebody recruit you or something?
So my first startup was called Venga.
Okay.
And it was in rental, like prop tech.
Okay.
And we had won the New Venture Challenge. We built a mobile app.
When was this?
This was in 2016.
Wow. Were you still in school at this time?
I was in my final year of my undergrad.
Okay. So answer the big question. Did you know you were going to be an entrepreneur or not?
Yeah. Like I said, once I got into the strategy program, I was like, this is clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's crazy, though, still, going to law school, knowing that you probably wouldn't use it to that end. Like, that's not bullshit. That is real. Like, that was really your situation.
Yeah.
It would have been so easy to just be like, nah.
Yeah.
Because that's what I did. I was like, I'm not going to use this, so I'm not going to go. In fact, I was targeting, BYU Law and ASU and USC.
Yeah, I only applied to BYU Law. Well, I also applied to the U of U. But I only applied to in-state law schools because I said, if I'm not getting into these, I'm not going to law school.
Maybe not worth it, yeah.
So my LSAT was good enough to where I got a scholarship to go to BYU. So I was like, okay, cool, let's do it.
Okay, cool. So, all right, let's talk about this startup. So while you're in law school, you're like, all right, let's get going.
Oh, it was already pretty well on its way by the time I got into law school. So
okay. Yeah. So let's go back to that then. So you got this idea in property tech.
Yeah.
What does the product do?
Tinder for tenants and landlords to swipe and like basically pre-match each other.
Really?
So, as a tenant, you would upload your search criteria and then something about your credit qualifications and all that. And then the landlord has his listing and you would swipe. And then if you match, then it's like you're pre-qualified and you just have a conversation.
Who helped you build the app?
So we went to a dev shop here called Verdad.
Okay.
They've now gone native and run with one of their own in-house apps.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
But they were crushing it. Super under the radar.
Yeah.
100% on time, 100% on budget every time.
And who helped you pay for that?
So we raised a little bit of angel money after we won the New Venture Challenge.
Okay.
So the New Venture Challenge gave us $15,000, and then we also won the audience and the Judge's Choice Award. During the presentation, they were like super hesitant to announce who won the Judge's Choice after we had already won the audience choice.
But
because they wanted to spread the money around.
Did any of these investors or people say, "Hey, Lee, quit school and go build this business"?
No,
or did it not come up?
No, we were silly and inexperienced, and we took money from whoever wanted to give it to us. So we took money from people that also didn't know how to invest.
Yeah, totally.
Luckily, it wasn't much. It was like $65,000 plus the 25, and I think altogether it was like 110 or something like that, 100,000. Okay. So they didn't know how to run a founder, and I didn't know how to not take on or take on it.
Or how to be a founder.
Yeah, how to be a founder. So we still talk and chat quite a bit, that angel investor and I.
Yeah.
And we still laugh about how naive we were when we first started that. Yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Okay, so you build the app. Did you guys get any customers ever?
Yeah, no, we had I think almost 1,000 users just in Provo.
Okay. And
then we partnered with Redstone, Grant Collard and his team, really awesome team. And then we also partnered with Rentler, who then became a paying partner. So they paid us like a couple $1,000 a month.
So you had revenue.
We had revenue. But the core business model was flawed because turns out the core value that we were offering was more of a feature than a product.
What do you mean by that?
Pre-matching, like pre-qualification. Entrata, Rentler could easily launch that today, like anytime, and just our value proposition's gone.
Yeah.
So we transitioned into more of like a buying and selling student housing contracts thing. And we bought like the BYU Facebook page and bought like 20 other of those Facebook pages around the nation. And the scale just wasn't there. And when you're trying to monetize the poorest population, it's not a great business model.
Yeah, you look back and think, man, I was so naive, right? On certain things,
the need is there.
Yeah,
but you can't build that as a venture business.
No. Yeah, totally. And it's funny you bring that up because there are businesses that are venture backable and some are not.
Yeah,
some are just not
viable businesses, just not venture businesses.
Yeah, exactly. So, okay, at what point did you shut that down? Was that while you were still in school?
Yeah, luckily Rentler, they helped us kind of crash land.
Yeah.
So they helped us, we had partnership agreements and we talked about them acquiring some of our stuff, and then we crash landed it first year of law school. So
yeah. Okay.
And then we just shut, there wasn't really any money to be made there.
So you went to work at Blip. What did you do at Blip?
Yeah. And sorry to tie it in, because you originally asked about the startup Brent, and I brought up the startup. He met me during Venga.
Okay.
And he said, hey, whenever you're done exploring here, he was a big fan of the fact that I was a non-technical fan. I didn't know how to code at that time.
Yep.
And I had found a way to build a product through Wix and VBA, like automation, spreadsheet automation. That was about all I knew.
Yep.
And he said, hey, he was the only person to look at that and go, hey, I like that. Everybody else just kind of sniffed,
Him and I had probably a 30-minute discussion once on a trip about how to put together an MVP to test an idea in its most minimum way.
Yeah.
No code.
He really understands. He's a sophisticated, trained, intelligent engineer.
Yes.
But he is the biggest proponent of low-tech GTM,
correct,
as low-tech as you can go to market.
Yep, it's totally true.
In fact, no tech would be better than any tech at all, in his opinion.
Yeah, at Distro, we put together our MVP, which was literally like some spreadsheets, some email automation, and some few basic things. And we sold it was between $300,000 and $400,000 of pre-sales before, hey, do you have this problem? Yes, I have this problem. Okay, what would you be willing to pay for it?
Right.
Okay, cool. When it's ready, would you pay for it? Yes. Yeah. So it's actually not as complex. Sometimes we get all anxious about what people will say, but if you're really solving a problem, they're going to be willing to work with you.
Absolutely.
So, okay. You were at Blip for a while. Yeah. What did you do and what did you learn at Blip working with Brent and the team?
So he needed to accelerate sales.
Yeah.
So that's where he put me in right away. So I was doing sales 35 hours a week, sometimes close to 40 just off the clock. And then long story short, so I had coded some automations into HubSpot with VBA. So I downloaded all the spreadsheets of contacts.
Yeah.
And then it would go through and lead rank based off of, is the email a custom domain? Is there industry names in the email? If it's a Gmail, is it Johnson's Concrete LLC at gmail.com?
Yeah.
And then if it was a custom domain, it would go to their website and scrape for Google Analytics or Google or Facebook Pixel widgets and integrations. And it would just rank all of the leads. And I was doing that just for myself because I want to become the best salesperson. So I started crushing it. I was at the top of the leaderboard day 2 because I just saw what they were doing. I was like, okay, if I'm doing this manually, I might as well automate it.
Yeah.
Other sales reps heard about it, were not happy because they felt like I was cheating. They went to upper management.
Of course.
And then Brent comes back to me and says, okay, you got to build this for everyone because then we can streamline everybody.
And you're like, damn it.
So this was, after 2 weeks. Yeah, after 2 weeks, everybody was like, this guy's got to be hacking it somehow.
Yeah.
So they had me transition over to sales ops basically a month in and start coding these kind of automations and lead ranking stuff. I was doing this all in VBA. So it would automatically download the CSV, rank through everything, re-upload it into HubSpot, and it was running off of Excel, right? So it was super janky.
Yeah, but it worked.
And it worked. And And then there was other automations and stuff. And then Brent finally pulled me aside. And he's like, look, we're going to pay you for like 2 months. Like, excuse me, you don't have to work on like, you don't have to generate sales. Just learn Python because we got to have all this stuff and you got to learn Python. He's like,
why Python? Was Blip written in Python? I can't remember.
I think their backend is Django.
Okay.
I don't know if it still is anymore, but he just said, he was like, Python's like the best, most versatile language with a large user base.
It's a good language. We actually just introduced some Python microservice into the distro.
Yeah. So Ruck is all written in Python, Django, Flask kind of stuff. So
okay, cool. All right. So we're gonna move towards Ruck now.
Yeah.
Okay. So you're at Blip, and are you feeling like happy and satisfied, or are you like, I need to get back to this though?
Blip was a dream job, dream team, dream job. Every company has its a little, politics and whatever, but if you didn't choose to involve yourself, you weren't bothered by it. So it was great. Brent had a great philosophy towards managing people. He would recruit A players, and then give them a lot of leniency and autonomy. And then just make it all just key indicator based, like milestone based management, right? So there's he didn't care what days you work, what hours. Yeah, it was great. So,
but did you feel this pull that you needed to go start something again?
Kind of, not really.
Okay. Maybe because you were happy doing what you're doing at Blip, or was it, I don't know, you just didn't really feel like you needed to start something else?
What I realized was I made a mistake on my first startup in pursuing something I didn't care about.
Interesting.
It was a good idea because, if someone actually went after like a pre-matching thing, or like a buying and selling housing contracts thing, like they could make a good business out of it. Not a venture-backed business, but it would have been a good business, I think. But I just didn't care about it. I think that's the core thing is whether it was a good business or not, I'm not sure because I have my personal doubts, but I know that I didn't care about it because I have never been a tenant that bought or sold a contract. I've only been a landlord who's leased out to tenants. And so I didn't personally really care.
Okay.
So at Blip, I was just like, I had a bunch of ideas and none of them I cared about. Brett and I would probably have breakfast once every other week and we just chat about different ideas and shoot the shit. And
the CEO of the company you're working at is sharing ideas on new product ideas.
He has always been a really tight mentor friend.
He's a great dude.
Yeah,
for sure. And he won't lie to you. He'll always tell you reality, the truth, which is what you need in a mentor.
But he doesn't tear you down.
No, he's not a jerk. But I think entrepreneurs need somebody that tells them what the reality is. I was on Clint Bett's podcast the other day, and he asked me what I thought should improve in Utah, in the Utah tech community, and I said we need to be more honest with each other.
Yeah, we need to be less nice.
Yes, that's literally what I said.
We have good people here, but the good people are overcompensating on niceness.
Yeah,
I gave my sales rep a dressing down the other day because he was just, just being super slacked off.
Yeah,
and
totally.
Like everybody looked at me like I was being wrong. I was like, I didn't even yell. They're like, well, you can't treat people. I'm like, if he did something wrong, he did something wrong. Like it was just, it's just like that. So.
Totally. I totally agree. Yeah. So anyway, I see Brent as that, regardless of what you feel like you need to hear, like I think he will tell you what he actually believes, which is helpful. Okay. So let's flash forward to Ruck. Where are you when you have the idea for Ruck?
So I'm at Blip. Now Blip has gone full remote because after COVID, they realized that they can run the company better and access better talent pools by going remote. Unfortunately, remote doesn't really work for me. So after we went remote is when kind of my dissatisfaction with my job started going up.
Okay.
I'm not a Slack guy. I'm not a Zoom guy. I think remote gatherings are a joke. Zoom parties are a joke. If it works for you, it works. But for me, it's a joke.
Yeah.
And so that was the point where I was like, okay, I don't think I can stay here for much longer. But still, Brent and I are still talking about ideas.
Yeah.
And there was almost an idea which I almost ran. There was an idea which I almost ran with, and Brent loved the idea again. But I did like the "Do I care about this?" test, and I was like, I don't give a shit about this idea. Like, it's a good idea. Someone should do it, just not me.
Yeah, not me.
And then I was wiring my buddy's basement because I've done a lot of construction stuff growing up. I was roughing on all of his electrical out of his breaker box for his basement.
Yeah.
And with the supply chain shortages, he was running to the store like 3 or 4 times a day, finding Romex and 2-gang boxes and whatever he can find. And then we're just like, dude, there should be like a DoorDash for this idea.
Somebody said that.
I said
you said that,
and he and I had started Venga together.
Oh, okay.
And he was like, "Oh yeah, that'd be a cool idea." And then like the next day, we just like didn't even think about it. Like, and then the next day I was driving to the airport because I was heading to my was I married? Yeah. I was heading to my in-laws. And then no. I was headed to. Anyways, I was.
When
headed
did you
out
get
for
married?
Christmas.
How long ago?
I got married in 2020.
Okay. Yeah, so a few years.
Yeah.
We'll call it 3. Yeah. I still forget, dude.
Oh man. I often, because of COVID, we had to switch our wedding dates around a couple of times.
So I still say, I
still tell people we got married in August, and Ashley always just no, it was September.
That's funny.
Oh no.
That's funny.
It's not a good sign.
So, okay. So somebody says DoorDash, this idea.
And I was flying out and I was just like, dude, that should be a thing. So over the Christmas holiday period, I whipped together some spreadsheet, looked at numbers, looked at TAM, and I was like, do I care about this idea? And I was like, hell yeah. I've probably run to Home Depot over 500 times in my life. Like, let's do it.
I can't tell you how many times I've gone to Home Depot, AutoZone, whatever, like from my shop, like for the smallest thing, right? And I totally would. In fact, I'll be at my shop. Sometimes we have volunteers that come to my race shop to work on cars and stuff. And I'll tell you how many times I pass out my credit card. Hey, could you go run and go pick something up? I would totally pay to have somebody come run back. And same thing if you're doing projects at home. Yeah. It's a problem. Because you always forget one little thing. Like no project uses one material.
We say the best metric when we're pitching investors is that 100% of projects are never get their stuff all on the first try.
Yeah. No, it's true.
So 100% of customers or contractors always have to go to the store 2 or 3 more times after their initial purchase.
It's totally true.
Yeah.
So, all right. So then what do? Like you can program a bit now, right?
Yeah, but like we mentioned, if you for most businesses that are not high tech or hardware, if you can't launch your business and validate it in real time with just a spreadsheet and a cell phone, then you're not willing to do what it takes to get it done, and you're there for the vanity's sake. So, Google spreadsheet, with customer, like a basic CRM in a Google spreadsheet. And then I just went door to door and I drove around and I looked at all the people doing construction, and I just knocked on their door and I said, hey, if I was your runner and I just went to Home Depot and picked up stuff for you, would you pay me $25 per run? Or $25 to $50 per run? And the answer was, in that $20 to $30 range, overwhelmingly yes. And we initially came out trying to target DIY users or handymen or people doing toilet valve replacements, stuff like that. Like
single people, like individuals.
Or handyman businesses. Yeah, DIY users or handyman businesses.
Right, but not big organizations yet.
No, not really.
Yeah.
We got, within the first week, we had our first deliveries, running. So I was running to the store and back. Our turnaround time was 30 minutes.
Okay, right? Which is fast. But from this idea you had, helping your buddy, and somebody said DoorDash, or you said that. From there to starting to cold call people or knock on doors and stuff, how long was that?
2 weeks. Yeah.
That's
because you don't have to quit your job to do it.
No, you don't. You just have to pick up a phone.
Yeah, and for most businesses, most startups, you don't need to do a lot of research. You just need to go and do it. Your research should be doing it.
Yeah.
Like you said, for yours is a fairly complex business model. You have to process payments, do visa stuff, do tax stuff.
Yep.
lots of complications. But at the end of the day, all you had to do was say, do you want to hire developers in another country that are technically capable that you don't have access to, and I can provide the access? Yeah. People said yes or no and said this is how much I'd pay for it. Yep. And you had a spreadsheet and you had a phone. You probably didn't even need a landing page.
You're exactly right.
And most businesses should just do that. Mm-hmm. There are a lot of BYU students that come to me. They're referred to me by somebody, and they already have mobile apps built out with 0 customers.
Okay, so I was sitting on a panel back in, I got invited, it was at Silicon Slopes. It was at a Silicon Slopes event. I was sitting on a panel in 2020. It was, I think, right before the pandemic. And this kid raises his hand, and it's about VC funding. My last startup was VC backed, and we were sitting up there, and this kid raises his hand, and he goes, I've got this app, I've been working on for a while, and when should I go out for funding? And and so I asked him, like, all right, you have a co-founder? And he goes, yeah. And I said, okay, cool. What's your revenue? And he goes, no revenue. And I said, okay, how long ago did you start building the app? And he said 3 years ago. And I said, you're done. It's too late. Like, your business is done. Like, I think the only exception are true fintech apps that require like bank covenants and lenders and stuff. And because some of those take like 9 months or a year to get processed, but the app itself shouldn't take you more than, a few months.
And you can still sell wait lists.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely.
You just basically, you get your LOIs, or you get people to say, like, you get your letters of intent, or you get people to say, hey, this is how much I'll pay. Correct. When you're ready to launch it. And if you can launch it within 12 months, I'll pay you like 50% now.
Totally.
Stuff like that. Like, it might be harder to get them to do like a prepayment.
Dude.
But it just depends on what you're offering.
Workfront, started by an entrepreneur named Scott Johnson. They sold a few years back to Adobe for a couple billion. And, right here in Utah. And his
the one with the one right on Lehigh?
Yeah.
They sold to Adobe?
Yeah, they sold to Adobe.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Good for them.
Yeah. And I want to say the transaction happened in later 2019. Finally is when it sold out. But when he started the company, the whole thing was literally started on pre-selling a customer $500,000 in cash.
Wow.
Yes. Like, that was how important the problem was that they were solving. And they used that to like sort of seed their business. So, anyway, I think you did that the right way, just my opinion. But I mean, Brent would also very much agree with you that you did it the right way.
Well, I mean, I advise everyone to do that because the data that you're going to get back is more accurate than any data you're going to pull from the internet about Tam Samsam or whatever. You're going to get more accurate data about customer need just by trying to sell it.
But why don't you think people do that? Like, why don't they do that more often?
Honestly, it's just fear.
You're totally right.
Yeah.
Because they're afraid of, oh, well, if I don't have anything to show you, how could I sell it to you,
It's, look, like Steve Jobs sold a bunch of stuff he didn't have. Elon Musk sold shit he didn't have. Like, if you really want to test your mettle as a visionary founder who's passionate enough to actually pursue, sell your product when you have nothing. Because then if you can't push through the pain of selling it when you have nothing to back up your sales pitch and only a vision and vision and promise, if you don't have the capability of doing that, you're not passionate about your idea. So to get it through.
You're totally true. And that's like excellent advice for people.
Most people are just afraid of sales.
That's really totally. Yeah. And sales in general, right? Which is not scary. Like, it's literally solving a problem. It sounds cliche, but it's literally just solving a problem.
Well, if you get people that are cussing you out and slamming the phone down on you, then either your sales pitch isn't good enough or your product is not what they need.
Or you're, exactly. The latter. You're talking to the wrong people, right? Yeah. Like,
Or that, sales pitch is not good, is not accurate, or the product is not good, or you're talking to the wrong people. One of the three.
Yeah.
And those are three really critical problems.
Yeah, totally.
Once you find the people that are like, even if they say, hey, I don't need this right now, but that's an amazing, like, I totally see the need for it. Please talk to me like in like a month or 2 months, or keep pinging
Totally.
Me. That's like, those are already good answers.
So thinking about starting this company, like, you're excited. If somebody says yes and you actually charge somebody money for something, now they're excited, right? Or you're excited. do you assemble a team?
No. Well,
what do you do?
Yes and no.
What do you do next?
You don't pay for a team, that's for sure. Yeah. If you got to pay for people to join your initial founding team, you're finding the wrong people.
Yeah, totally.
Like the people that I assembled immediately were people that were hungry to do a startup. They saw the pain point and they were good friends that were capable. Like being a friend was not a requisite for being on my team.
Yeah.
It was that they were capable. So,
and you start with who you know, right? Like at least somewhat.
So I pulled on a friend that he's a general contractor. He had a truck and trailer. We only basically saw each other at Home Depot. So like we wouldn't talk ever and we'd bump into each other at Home Depot.
Yeah.
And then the other guy was the one that I was doing the basement with, that I had the idea with. So, and a couple of other people, and none of them were paid. None of them.
What'd you offer them?
The chance to build something and maybe have some equity in it.
I love that.
If they're not willing to help you out with that promise, then they're not the right people to help you start, get an idea off the ground. Because they have to be crazy about the idea enough to be like, yeah, dude, I'll do this for fun.
Yeah.
They got to think of it as really fun.
Yeah.
And all the initial people were like, yeah, dude, like this is a fun idea. Let's do it. And I told all of them, look, we're going to start this. You may or may not get equity because you may or may not want to be with me when we go to the next stage because we probably can't pay you what you're earning right now. All of them are experienced professionals that are getting paid 6 digits plus.
Right.
And I can't afford to do that.
So you're selling though, and that's good. You're proving the concept. And I think early on, like a lot of that is about proving the concept, right? Like do the dogs eat the dog food is kind of the saying, right? So how are you thinking about funding then?
So
and this was just a couple of years ago now, right?
So almost 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Blip was paying me well enough and again.
Wait, so hold on, stop there for everyone listening. So you did this also while you have a job still, right?
Yeah.
Which is smart.
Yeah. Most businesses at this stage could probably be started while you're still working.
Yes.
Like a lot of people think they have to quit their job before they start a business. I find that most people think that as some sort of a self-imposed barrier to taking the final leap.
Yeah, like go all in.
Yeah, they're
but
like,
it's stupid.
Oh, I got to have a certain amount of income, so therefore I can't quit my job. So therefore I can't pursue this idea. And I think it's actually like a subconscious excuse.
Yeah.
And that's not calling anybody out in like a mean way. I'm just saying like really look at that reasoning and ask yourself, really, do you need 40 hours a week to go and test this out?
Yeah. And the answer is no.
The answer is no. You need 10 hours a week to go test out an idea.
Yeah. The funny thing is when you start a startup, even if you had $5 million tomorrow and you literally just had this idea, let's say like this is your first week, okay? And you're now paying yourself a full-time salary. There is not full-time work to do in the beginning.
There's not.
There's only so much sitting in a chair thinking about what you could be doing.
Right.
So it kind of, it definitely evolves. So
because even if you're like 100% sales, which is because a lot of people sit around working on branding, working on their website. That's all fluff. That's all vanity.
T-shirts.
Yeah, that's all vanity.
Yeah.
You should be 100% in on sales right at the beginning.
Right.
But even if you make like 100 calls, 200 calls a day, you're only going to schedule like 15, maybe 20 meetings this week.
Yeah, totally.
And each of those meetings is like 30 minutes, and that's not even 40 hours,
Yeah, totally. It's just, but over time, right, when you do sell customers and you do, it improves, right? So we've just got a couple minutes left. Tell me about like how you're thinking about fundraising, because you guys did raise a little bit of money, right?
Yeah. So we first, while at Blip, I brought the idea to Brent, and he's always been a big proponent of people having side projects while working. He encouraged
unconventional.
He said that everyone at Blip should have a side project.
Yeah.
Everyone at Blip should have a side project, and if that side project is good enough, they should leave Blip to go pursue that side project.
Absolutely.
And that's a great CEO right there. But then he was like, okay, I could put 25,000 behind this. And then I took the idea to Trent and Scott over at Convoy, and they were like immediately like, I think we were their first check in their first fund for Convoy.
Oh, were you really?
Yeah.
Wow.
Because I pitched them while FaceTiming them during a delivery. Yeah.
That's so awesome.
Or it was a volley. It was a volley.
Yeah, was it a
the founder
volley?
of Volley was also here on the podcast.
Yeah, he has. And Josh is awesome. It's funny. We had an investor meet with us the other day, and he was in the office, and one of his portfolio companies was in our app and interviewing somebody like at the same time. And he wanted to like see our products. So we just showed him. He's like, oh, that's one of my portfolio companies who's using distro.
That's
and
awesome.
he's like, oh, that's helpful, you know?
Yeah.
But,
so, I said DoorDash for construction materials, and they were like, yeah, let's do it. But we didn't take any of the actual cash, I think, up until like June.
Yeah.
Because then basically I gave Brent the heads up that I was leaving. Then I quit, but I was already running Ruck, like basically 20 plus hours a week.
Yeah.
I was printing out door hangers, going door to door, knocking on everybody's door.
Yeah.
I was in the Home Depot parking lot handing out flyers on the weekends.
That's so awesome.
So then I gave Brent the heads up. He said, please stay through for X period of time to down ramp your projects and hand them off. I said, okay. And then June was when I went full time.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. Well, congratulations.
Yeah.
So what's the future of Ruck? What do you do next?
Yeah. So after getting our investment from our most recent round of funding came from Goldhouse Ventures, which is a Bay Area, LA, New York based venture firm run by a former Kleiner GC's, Kleiner general partner. Yeah.
Yeah.
So they helped us through kind of building out a scalable model. We expanded down to Phoenix, and then their plan is basically let's raise like another like 5 million next summer, and then really hit it hard on the warm states kind of that are perpetually building.
Yep.
So, right now we're just focused on Utah and Phoenix for like the next foreseeable year or so, and just keep crunching at those. We want Ruck to turn into almost like an Amazon where it's a delivery enabled marketplace.
Yeah.
And we want to make it so that, contractors don't have to go into like an e-commerce platform type of experience like what you would have on Amazon, because currently they're just calling their reps at the vendors and just 30 seconds, hey, I need a bunk of OSB delivered to the blah, blah, blah job site. And the guys will be like, cool, I'll send you a quote, you approve it, we're done. Hangs up the phone, right? It's all phone calls, emails, texts.
Which is kind of slow, right?
Well, but if you think about it, that phone call took 30 seconds. Browsing on homedepot.com to get the same product would probably take 10 minutes plus.
Yeah, for sure. That's
right?
true.
So 10 to 15 minutes. And you have to just be sitting there, right? So we want to leapfrog the e-commerce platform, throw, ChatGPT or some LLM behind it so that they can continue to have that organic conversation piece. But then it runs queries against all the inventory, optimizes the price, sends them back a quote, they approve it. And then the whole process is kept to that 30-second conversation.
Yeah.
But they never get ghosted. They never go to voicemail. And they can access everyone's inventory. And it doesn't matter if they're a small GC or a large construction company, they get the same treatment. So that's what we want to turn into, is a delivery-enabled marketplace. Because construction materials, that's like a $460 billion market that is pretty much analog.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. I prefer, when I look at startups and things, I would have like a higher likelihood of doing. And if you look at my background, the stuff that I've done, it's not the most crazy innovative, but it's very disruptive to an old sleepy thing, kind of like Blip.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's something I prefer, but
by the time the average person or like the average founder, people like us find out about buzzy things like crypto or AI or stuff, typically it's too late.
Yeah, definitely.
So I think you want to be the first in line, look at the places where people aren't looking at, like just dig through trash to find like industries that people aren't looking at. No one in white collar cares about blue collar. So it's just, that's why there's the term white collar and blue collar.
Yeah.
Everybody who's starting a company, thinking about financing, doing investment, everybody's white collar.
Yep.
Everybody in the blue collar space cares about what power tools they're using. They don't care about Slack or LinkedIn or whatever.
Right.
So if you can turn your minds to the blue collar industry with their perspective, you really can find a lot of great opportunities.
Yeah.
But you gotta really respect the blue collar culture.
For sure.
So.
For sure. Well, where can people reach you if they have any questions or want to follow up with you on anything?
Yeah, our website's ruckdelivery.com. If you message on that chat, usually I'm the one that answers. But, but Lee at ruckdelivery.com, that's fine too. So ruckdelivery.com.
Awesome. Well, thanks for coming on the show and sharing a little bit about your story. And we wish you the best of luck at Ruck.
Sure. Thank you, man.
All right, cool.
Appreciate it.
Thank you for listening to today's episode of No Instructions. Feel free to leave us a rating or review wherever you listen to podcasts and subscribe so we can continue producing these podcasts. Today's episode was brought to you by Distro. Distro is a platform to help startups find, hire, and pay employees in over 200 countries. It's free to use. Go to distro.io to set up your free account today.